Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I am going to flip the Spellbinders August 2023 club kits. And if you've never seen one of my flip videos, it's where I make at least one flat, one layered, one interactive, and one pop-up card. Here's a look at the 4 cards that I'll be making in this video, and I'll be featuring the 3D embossing folder, the clear stamp and die of the month, the small die of the month, and the large die of the month. I do get other club kits, but I won't be featuring them in this video, so there will be more videos to come. Okay, so getting started with my flat card. I actually don't often use the large die of the month on a flat card because you get so many dies usually on the large die of the month. And I was thinking about it, and I think I almost always use the large die of the month for either my interactive or my pop-up card. So I thought I would try to see what I could do where I'm using this on my flat card. And how I have defined a flat card isn't strictly just your card base, but rather the card base plus at most one layer of cardstock. And so even though this die set has a lot of dies that will let you layer on leaves and flowers and buds and budding fruit onto this really large branch. What I've done in order to keep this to that one layer maximum that I've set for myself is I die cut it out of white, and I'm leaving the die cut in the surrounding cardstock because there are some really thin areas, particularly in the branches, where it would be really difficult to color if I separate this out or completely pop it out of the cardstock. So this is how I like to color my die cuts. Generally, it's easier in any case, but in particular, it can be very helpful for when you do have delicate die cuts like this branch. So I am just going to color it with I'm using my alcohol markers. These are the Spectrum Noir Tri-Blends, which are pretty convenient because you have 3 different colors on the same marker barrel. And the idea is that you have a really nice trio of colors to blend if you want that light, mid, dark effect. I found though especially with the brush markers in the Tri-Blends, that some of the colors, the gap between them is more than in other cases. It varies quite a bit. And so I did find myself having to do that tip to tip method to get sort of an in-between color because some of the blends were a little bit hard to get as kind of smooth as I would like. But I'm kind of using this die in a very different way as to how it's been designed, because I remember back when I first took a look at this set and I was filming the haul video that I initially saw this branch as an orange branch because it's got these round circles on the branch mixed in with the leaves. And so I thought the circles were actually oranges. But upon looking closer at the die set, they are actually just glue spots for you to glue on the various different flowers and buds and all of those extra accents, because this die set is actually designed to be a pomegranate tree. And I love that because it's so different. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of video inspiration for how to assemble the pomegranate. And I'll do that probably in a follow-up video if I can remember. But I just thought it was funny that I originally thought this was an orange tree, and so I thought I would just run with that idea. And you can tell me if it looks convincing as an orange tree. But I thought it's kind of cool because then that means that you can kind of get double duty out of this tree branch because it's really large. This is an A2 card, but it's taken up nearly the entire card front. So I love it. And I think if I were to have actually made the pomegranates, they're rather large too. So I might have needed a larger card base to really show those off. I did die cut some extra leaves, not to layer on top of the branch, but more to, I was actually originally thinking that this would actually be a little bit of an accent near my sentiment banner because the die set does actually come with a debossing plate that has the word thanks, and then you also get the outline die to cut that out too. And so I thought that these extra little individual leaves might be a nice accent to add to that little sentiment banner. But in the end, I decided not to do that. I dry fitted a couple of different positions and variations on how to make that work, and I didn't like any of them. But what I chose to do instead, though, was I happened to have like a couple that sort of fell onto my card base, and I liked the look of it just being randomly spread out as if they were leaves falling off of the branch. So I kind of liked the look of that, and then I just went with it. The bottom, and I thought, oh, that kind of looks neat. And so I just ran with that too. So this is definitely one of those cards where I didn't really have a plan for it as I was first starting on the card. The loose plan was just that I thought it was funny to try to convert this to an orange branch. And that was the idea that I had, and the rest kind of grew from there. So I kind of like how it turned out. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you think this is convincing as an orange branch. Okay, so now moving on to my layered card. I have a panel here that I've already stamped and colored with the clear stamp of the month, and I have this bit of lavender cardstock that I will run through the 3D embossing folder. And if you're using the universal plate system, you just need your base, your 3D embossing folder, and the D plate on top of it. Now, what's really cool about the coordinating dies that you get with this month's clear stamp, and you do have the option to get the clear stamp by itself, but it does have a coordinating die set, and it's pretty cool because this is such a large focal image stamp that I like the fact that they didn't give us one die to do a complete outline die cut of the stamped image, but rather they gave us two halves so that we can do what I'm going to do here on this card, which is to create a shaped border. And so you have one die that will cut out that right half, and then the other die will cut out and hug the left half. So you can kind of do this kind of in the reverse if you wanted. But since I had already stamped out my sentiment on the left side, I chose to die cut off the right side. This card, this is actually a 5x7 card, so that kind of gives you an idea for how large that focal image is. It's pretty cool. So with my 3D embossed panel, I did intentionally use a panel that was larger than what I knew I needed. But I did that so that I could actually kind of be a little bit picky about what areas of the embossed panel was going to be visible behind that shaped border that I'm creating. In particular, I wanted the really large flower to still be visible, and so that was what I was aiming for. And it's really great when you have a large embossing folder like these ones, which are 5.5 by 8.5, because you can be selective about where to position your panel, especially if you are making a smaller size card. But these larger embossing folders are great for even large cards like this 5x7. So I've got that embossed panel glued down onto my card base, and with this panel, the one that I've stamped and colored onto, I am going to lift this up with a little bit of foam. And that gives it just a little bit of extra dimension, and it really emphasizes that shaped border, because then there'll be a little bit of that shadow. And for the, like, right along that edge where we've got that irregular shape, I'm going to use some 3D glue gel, because I still want some adhesive behind there, but those areas are such, some of them are small and then they're irregularly shaped, so it's kind of hard to get foam behind there. But I don't want that to actually accidentally catch on something. So that's why I really love using 3D glue gel for things like that, so that I can get some glue behind an area that needs some dimension but is a little bit too fiddly to get foam behind. Actually, I found that I didn't squeeze out enough glue gel to match the dimension of my foam, so I just squeezed in a little bit more. It's pretty easy to just lift it up and get a little bit more glue under there, because the glue gel does take a little bit of time to dry. And so that wraps up my layered card, and now onto my interactive card. So that layered card was actually initially intended for this one, but I stamped it onto a full 5x7 panel, and I forgot, for the type of card that I'm making, I actually needed to reduce the height of this by a little bit. So here I'm actually stamping onto a 5-inch wide by 6.5-inch tall panel. And I'm going to stamp, this is basically going to look very similar, similarly colored and everything, just because I really liked the color combo that I used earlier. And so I wanted to stick with that again. And I have this stamped out, and I've got the sentiment. This is also from the clear stamp of the month. It says, "Thank you, friend," which is really lovely. Then I've already colored this up through the magic of, video editing. And what I'm going to do, I would definitely recommend leaving your stamp on your stamp positioning window, because that's going to be better for this step, because I actually have to stamp this image again, but this time onto acetate. But I want this acetate to match 100% with the image that I've already stamped. So it's a lot easier to do that if you left your stamp in on the window of your stamp positioning tool, and then you just place some acetate right over where your card was. So I definitely would recommend doing that. I totally forgot, because it's been so long since I've made one of these cards. And if you don't know where I'm headed with this, I'm actually making a magic slider card. So the idea is that I've taken the same stamped image, stamped it onto acetate, And then I'm going to have this pull tab that will go between our colored version and it'll be on top of our colored version and behind the acetate. So ultimately it's going to create this effect of magically changing your stamped image from being black and white to full color. This panel here measures 4.5 wide by 7 inches tall. And I'm aiming to trim off about 3/16 of an inch from both of the long edges, but I did leave about 1/4 of an inch on the bottom. So I notched it by 1/4 of an inch, like leaving 1/4 of an inch at the bottom. And the reason for that is that extra little notch there is how we'll have room to put a stopper that will prevent you from pulling this tab completely off of the card. And as well, we'll add a stopper at the bottom so that the pull tab doesn't fall out the bottom of the card. And right now I'm adding some adhesive to some foam that I buy by the sheet. This foam actually already has adhesive on one side, so I just need to put some adhesive on the opposite side. And I'm using black because I've cut this frame out of black, so I figured the black is going to actually look a little bit nicer than white foam, but it doesn't really matter too much because you're not going to see it unless you kind of look at it from the sides. So I'll first glue down the panel that I colored onto my card base. Now my card base I did also cut short. So the card base itself is also 5 inches wide by 6.5 tall. This frame is also 5 wide by 6.5 tall. And I've just cut an aperture out of it that gives me about 1/2 inch all the way around. And all I did actually to cut out that aperture is I just took any rectangle die that was wide enough to give me the margin I wanted, and I just did a partial die cut from one end and then lined it up on the opposite end and did a partial die cut from the opposite end, just in case you don't have a die that's like the exact right border that you need. But you could also just draw out a rectangle and then use a craft knife to cut out that frame. So next, what I'll do is I've already glued my acetate to the back of this black frame that I have here. And now I will attach foam to the left, the bottom, and the right edge. So the foam, I was aiming for about just a little bit over 1/8 of an inch. That way there's plenty of room for the pull tab to still slide up and down. But what I'm going to do at the very top though, and that's just why I left myself a little bit of room at the top and I didn't run that foam all the way from the bottom to the top of the card. And that's because we need a little bit of foam to act as a stopper so that you can't pull this pull tab out completely. Before I do that though, because once we do that, this pull tab is going to be locked into the card and you're not going to have access to it again. So what I wanted to do was stamp a second sentiment. And the neat thing about this is that there are some perfect sentiments for this type of card, which is, this was actually the first card that I thought to make, because there's a sentiment that says a little message to say ... So I've stamped that one onto my pull tab, and that is what will be visible initially when the card is closed. And so here you can see I'm actually adding that bit of foam, and you can see it kind of goes in a little bit towards the center, and that extra little bit that it's going into towards the middle of the card is what's going to stop our pull tab from getting pulled out completely. But as I was saying, the pull tab just has that sentiment that reads a little message to say, and I'll also stamp out pull here at the very top as well, and that's so that whoever gets this will know there's something to do with it, that they need to pull. And so when the card is closed and the pull tab is fully inserted, the sentiment that's going to be visible will read a little message to say, but as you pull it, it's going to reveal a second sentiment, which we stamped onto our colored panel. And that sentiment reads, "Thank you, friend." So I thought it would be cool to kind of have that two-part sentiment get revealed in this way. Now I've just rounded the corners of my pull tab just to make it look a little bit more finished. And then I can glue down this frame and make sure before I burnish it really well that everything still works, because you don't want to accidentally glue down your pull tab. You need this to be able to slide, and it won't slide completely out because we added the extra foam at the top. And so it's just a really fun magic slider card. Now onto my final card. This is going to be my pop-up card, and it features the small die of the month. With the small die of the month, there's this really lovely woman who is in this really flowy dress, and she's sitting on a swing set. There are just so many really kind of small little details that really make this pretty fabulous, because there's a lot of different layers, and it's been well designed. I really like it a lot. So for example, there's the leg, there are two leg pieces and one overlaps the other. And to kind of find how to position this, there's actually a deboss line on one of the legs. It's actually her right leg. And that gives you an idea for how the other legs should be positioned over top of it. And you'll see that sort of detailing with extra deboss lines on various elements of the die cuts. And that is to give you a little bit of a hint as to how to layer up all of these different pieces. Now this piece here, it looks a little bit strange, but it's basically the back side of her dress, so that you would see kind of sort of on the reverse or the inside of the fabric. And so I love that little detail, because it really does add to the feel of this being having a lot of depth and dimension. Then we have her two arms, and I had to kind of make believe that I was holding on to a swing set just to see which arm was left and which one was right, because you can see the thumbs clearly on the hands, and so that gives you a good hint for where to place this. But the dress of the sleeves have a lot of detail too, because especially on her right hand or her right arm, that sleeve, right where the seam is or where the cuff would be, there's a slit in the dress, and you can actually tuck the arm into the dress sleeve, and that sort of detail really, really makes everything look very realistic, because it does look like the arm is coming out of the sleeve. And you'll see that same sort of detailing with the hair and the hat as well, because the hair has a slit through which you can slide the head. And the hat has a slit through which you can slide, the entire head through. Now with the head and face, there's actually a separate die that is just the face. And even though I've cut everything out of the same sort of that skin tone colored cardstock, just having that extra layer for the face really helps because it does add a bit of dimension, and it really makes the face more well defined. Even though there aren't actually any facial features on the face itself, just having that extra die cut of the head is really enough for that detailing. And the hair does also have some deboss lines so that you know how to position that the head, neck, and shoulder piece that I've die cut out of skin. And what I really like is that the hair, if you didn't want to use the hat, you could leave the hat off and I think it would still look really nice. So it worked and without the hat. But what I think is really lovely about this die set is just how much movement there is, because you can really see that her hair is flowing, her dress is flowing, so she's really either swinging really, high, or it's just a very windy day. So either way, I love having that movement. The pop-up card that I'm gonna make, I don't know if this has a specific name to it, but what I'm going to do is I have the ADHESIVES nested shape dies, and I've picked out one where I think she will mostly fit within this size die, and I'm gonna cut an aperture right through the front of my card. Be sure to open up your card so you're not actually cutting through both layers of your card base. You just want to be cutting through the front of your card base. But you want to keep the piece that die cut out, because we're going to use that. And you can actually do this with any shaped die that you have. I just like this one because it seemed like it was a good size to actually fit her on here. And just with some scrap paper, I'm going to create my pop-up mechanism. So I've cut this, and I don't even know how long it is, but I'll show you for any aperture you happen to use if you don't have the ADHESIVES. What you want to do is, from the fold of your card, take a measurement of that to where your aperture begins. And you want to make sure that first score line that you put in is going to fit within that space without crossing into the aperture. So in my case, it's 1/2 inch. So I scored at 1/2 inch, and that's going to be completely hidden. That 1/2 inch is completely hidden between where that opening is and the fold of my card. The next score line I happened to put in was at around 3 inches or so. And basically what you want that next score line, what's governing that next score line is the width of your aperture. You want to make sure it's hidden within the width of your aperture. Your third score line, you just want to match that same distance as your first score line. So in my case, it was 1/2 inch. So I just measure another 1/2 inch, because that's going to be essentially the height that this pop-up extends past or above the back of the card. So those two need to be the same height. And then whatever cardstock is left over, that's going to be the glue tab that glues to the back of the card. So when you go to attach this, you want to glue that first segment that we scored onto the front of your card. Then go all the way to the opposite end of that pop-up mechanism, and you want to put glue only on that last tab, whatever was left over from your scrap piece of cardstock. And you want to fold this down not on the that first glue tab, but actually on your second glue tab. I did it wrong initially. So you want to fold this on the second glue tab, or on the second score line, sorry. And that way, when this glues down, you still have that extra height. In my case, it's that 1/2 inch that will pop up and extend above the back of your card. So that just gives us our basic pop-up mechanism. And that long stretch there, that is where I'm going to glue this panel right back in. So we're going to use that and just nestle it right back where it came from. And then when we open this up, it's going to kind of lift up that whole thing as a little bit of a platform. So that's really kind of a fun, simple little pop-up mechanism where you can kind of bring the front of the card into the inside of the card and then add some extra details to kind of be a little bit of a surprise on the inside. So with the aperture piece that fell out, I am going to just do a little bit of inking to make this seem like a bit of a sky scene behind her. And I want to do a little bit of a vignetting, so I'm aiming to have some darker edges all the way around the border, and I'm going to leave it pretty white in the center so that it just ends up being a little bit of a frame for her. And to position this, I just close everything down. I put glue on our pop-up mechanism that's visible, and then I insert this right through that aperture. Should fit perfectly. And give that a good burnish, and then that becomes the little pop-up platform that we can now build everything else on top of. So you do need to be careful about where you put glue with in particular with this this woman, because she's rather large. This is an A2 card, and she takes up quite a bit of it. But it's really great because that means she can really be the focal image of your card. But what I'm going to do is create the rest of her swing, because she is sitting. There's a couple dies that you can layer up for the seat of the swing. And then there's a die that actually cuts out the two, I guess the two ropes or chain, whatever you want to think of this as, that actually holds the seat of the swing from whatever it's swinging off of. Maybe a tree branch, or oh, that would be an idea to kind of attach this to that pomegranate tree branch. But I'm going to attach her to the seat, and then attach the rope so that it looks like she's holding the rope. But when I glue her down, I'm making sure to only put glue where it's going to meet up with or overlap with that platform. In this case, that hexagon shape. And it's okay that her legs are sort of hanging off, that they will get hidden when the card is closed. It's also okay that her hat is a little bit extended above that hexagem. It's still within, everything is still within the framework or the outer edges of the A2 card when it's closed. So that's what makes this a little bit interesting, because she mostly fits onto this shape, but parts of her extend off of the shape. So it's kind of neat, because then when you open the card fully, then you see her in full, whereas when it's closed, she's a little bit clipped off. And so what I'm going to do with some of the other dies that come in this set is just add a lot of color and all these lovely little florals. I'm going to create little floral sprays in some of the corners here, and it just adds a nice pop of color on the inside. And that's what I like with pop-up cards, is just to keep the outside a little bit understated, and then have a lot of the kind of the fun, a lot of the color and character of the card on the inside as a bit of a surprise. And of course, I didn't think about where to put my sentiment. So after I've got these flowers set, I then thought, oh, I should probably add a sentiment. Now, this particular die set does have a debossing die, the word hello, which I think you can fit that onto her dress. I don't know if it would fit onto the hat. But it's a debossing plate, and I've already assembled all of our figure here, so too late to use that. So then I went to the clear stamp of the month, and lots of the stamps from that set will fit into this little corner. I actually thought initially I was going to put it on the outside, but if you open this card and actually put it on display, the outside of the card isn't really going to be seen much, and so you're not going to see the sentiment at all. So what I decided to do was actually put my sentiment on the inside. And then when I was looking at it, I thought, oh, now the top part of my card has the sentiment, but it's looking a little bit plain. So I decided to die cut a few more flowers and actually add some flowers to this top left corner here. So it's a little bit less, it just looks a little bit more incorporated into the scene, especially since I have that stamped sentiment on the top portion. So that is my final card for this flip video. Here is a final look at all 4 cards that I created, starting with my flat card, which is featuring the large die of the month, which is technically supposed to be a pomegranate tree, but I have turned it into an orange tree. And so I really love how this turned out. You'll have to let me know if it's convincing as an orange tree. Then onto my layered card, where I've used the clear Stampin' Die of the month, and I created a shaped border, and behind that shaped border I have a panel that I've embossed with the 3D embossing folder. Next is my interactive card. I made a magic slider card featuring again the clear stamp of the month, and a really fun, kind of a fun reveal card. It's been a while since I've done one of these cards, and I had a lot of fun doing it. I feel like the sentiments or the sentiments with the clear stamp of the month work really perfectly as part of that reveal. And then finally, I have my pop-up card, which features the small die of the month, and the sentiment is from the clear Stampin' Die of the month. I hope that you enjoyed my flip video today, and I will definitely have more videos featuring other club kits of this month. And so those will all be featured along with this one in my Spellbinders playlist, which I'll link to at the end of this video. Thanks for joining me today. Links to everything will be in the description box below. If you do use my affiliate links, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It does help to keep my channel going. Thanks again, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.